Hello, boys. How you going? John Worsfold, Dean Kemp, everybody. Put your hands together for them. Lead up to the day. Obviously, reflecting back, Whoosh, what do you remember in the lead up to the game on Grand Final Day 1994?
My memory of 1994 is not as clear as it was in 1992, but obviously we came off, we had that tight game against Collingwood at the Wacker, and then just put in a brilliant performance against Melbourne. And I think we just knew then, we were going to be hard to beat. That was probably the feeling that I had at that stage. Still full respect that Geelong could turn it on any given day, but it was going to be more that we were going to have to not perform to not win that game rather than Geelong being good enough to beat us.
Tommy, what do you remember?
Well, Boris, I used to share a room with Brett Heddy, and probably the worst bloke to share a room with in the whole of the football club. But each week we used to go, each fortnight we went away, and I'd have to be in a room with Brett, and I only did it for the team. Mick wanted me to, make sure he's up and about and keep him smiling and happy, and so that exhausted me a lot, took a lot of energy out of me, Boris. But I concentrated as best I could on Brett and not thinking about myself. And made sure he got down to breakfast early, prepared himself well, and it was history from there.
Can you believe it's been 30 years since we achieved the feat?
It certainly seems to have gone quick. The camaraderie we still have as a group, as our lives have all taken their own pathways, still so close. Everyone just... the feeling when everyone walks in the room is still pretty special. So in that regard, it doesn't feel like that long ago, but 30 years, yes. It's a long time ago, but it was such a big achievement, and we had a few young fellas in that team as well. It was great to have them part of it. They're still looking in pretty good nick, but a few of us older boys are starting to hobble a bit.
I was looking at Tommy. He doesn't look much different, does he? Look at him.
No, Tommy's he's in good nick. Yeah, absolutely.
What about the hype, Tommy? Do you remember the hype, the lead up, of course, obviously winning it in 92, falling short in 93 to bounce back. There was a fair bit of pressure going back to 94. Do you remember that?
Yeah, most definitely. We, and like anything, you look back now and always sort of think we should have got a bit closer in 93, but there's not much we can do about it now. And the pressure was really on at the end of the 93 season, started 94, so... Mick and the coaching staff were really pushing us pretty hard back then. We obviously did used to train quite long hours, a bit different to nowadays. I think it's more a bit more scientific now, but we really did put the yards in, and a huge I remember pre-seasons were so competitive in every training session, and I think that held us in good stead once being there, in 92 before, and then to get back there in 94 was awesome.
What about as captain? I mean, obviously media commitments and other general duties, you had a few more than most.
Yeah, that was obviously just a big part of the build-up to the grand final. But I was comfortable at that stage. I'd been captain for a fair while, so all that stuff was pretty good. The difference for me in '94 was that Monkey Brennan was going to play on Gary Ablett, so I could relax a little bit more going into that game, even though the bloke I lined up on towed me up early. But that's okay. So yeah, it was the media stuff. The build-up was, we were a pretty clinical side by then. Mick had worked out the routine that we'd needed over a number of years. We were going into our third grand final in 4 years, which in itself is a great experience, but that's quite taxing as well. When you're playing those extra finals games every year in a row and doing the extra travel from Perth, that does take its toll on you. So, whatever happened in 93 didn't, if we had gone all the way in 93, didn't guarantee we would have bounced back really strong in 94. The fact we finished a little bit earlier, I reckon just helped freshen us up and certainly brought that hunger back to take it to that next step in 94.
Everyone had their little routines before a game. What does yours look like on grand final day? Do you remember? Do you remember what you got up to?
Not a great deal. I used to do a little bit of one-on-one work with Robbie Wiley, just, hands and kicks and bits and pieces, a little bit of tackling and that sort of stuff, but usually pretty low-key. I used to keep pretty quiet before the game and think about what needed to be done and hopefully get out there and get a kick.
Do you remember the atmosphere running through the banner out onto the ground? Because, again, it was fairly hostile territory.
Yeah, we certainly still weren't that well appreciated playing in the grand finals at the G. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, we were pretty clinical by then. We all knew our own routines. You know, Maney did have his breathing exercises he did pre-game. That was sort of always a trigger for us that we're getting close to doing our team warm-up. Maney would start doing his breathing exercises out loud. So, you know, there was little things that we just knew what everyone did for their warm-ups and getting ready. Yeah, I didn't really have any set routine. It was pretty much just trying to stay relatively calm, not get too excited before the game. I used to save that for Geelong.
Now, you smashed them. You win by 80 points. When did you really start celebrating? I mean, even if it was internally, because you could never go too early with Mick, could you? Because he made that very clear to us all. But when did you internally think we got this in the bag?
Oh, I'd have to say probably sort of halfway through the last quarter, Boris. You're sort of, you know, comfy in front and everyone's feeling good, and you're thinking, right, there's only about 15, 16 minutes to go now, so we should hold on. We're, you know, 80 points up or whatever. But you never want to get too far ahead of yourself, you know. I'd hate to fall over the line, mate, a couple of points short, but we got there. It was good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really remember too much of the scoreline, so I can't remember what the score was at half-time. I would have been just focusing on, just we're here to play out the full game, play out every minute of the game, and tried not to take in the scoreboard too much. But I'm sure there was at some point, maybe early in the last quarter, where Jacko would have been starting to carry on a bit. He was always the one who was getting excited, and we were just trying to calm him down a little bit and play the game out. Did
you feel like you had to do anywhere near as much work? I mean, look at the midfield. I spoke about Pikey with his 26, 23 and a Norm Smith medalist sitting between us, Whoosh. You could throw in Roo, and Evo went up through the midfield, and Brett Heady will say, if you don't leave me out. All of those wonderful teammates that we had running through the middle of the ground was a pretty good day, wasn't it, that day?
Yeah, it was a brilliant day. You know, Jason Ball lit the place up early. He was unstoppable, and he'd had a great year. And then you know, he was looking sharp, clean, quick. So just everyone was playing their role. You know, I remember clearly. You know, we weren't relying on the older boys that had taken us all the way through 92. The younger boys had come in, Ryan Turnbull and Banners and these guys. And we're playing critical roles and doing it brilliantly for us as well.
Did you think that you could win the Norm Smith medal? Was it something that you dreamt about? Do you have a premonition or anything like that? And did you think you were a genuine chance to win it after the final siren went?
Yeah. No. Well, it's like anything, you know. You want to get off to a good start, and that's probably the most important thing. Was the first bounce, thinking, right, let's get a touch early so we get the nerves to settle and get into the game and a bit of a rhythm. And, you know, I was lucky enough to do that, and it sort of continued on and, you know, had a good day, but there were a lot of other good players as well, so probably a bit of a coin toss, really. So, but I'm pretty happy I got that one, yeah.
Walk us through the emotions after the final siren went. Was it as good? I mean, you two played in 92. There was a few that was there, well, 5 players played in their first grand final, but was it as good the second time round?
Yeah, it definitely was. You know, it was, like I said, we sort of knew each other pretty well by then. We'd played so much footy and a lot of finals together, so there was just so much trust and assuredness about us going out to play in those big games. So, I don't know, for me, it was a little bit about celebrating the guys that had now become West Coast premiership players that didn't play in 1992. There was without ever talking about it, just under the surface, there was always, you know, Heinzie and Hardy as the older boys coming in and hadn't played in 92. How good was it going to be to have them as West Coast premiership players as well? So, as much as there was never any focus on it, or it wasn't really spoken about, that was there. You know, I got no doubt. So, it was almost like when the final siren went, just embrace all those guys that were experiencing it for the first time.
Do you remember where you were on the ground, Tommy, when the final siren went?
probably would have been in the middle, I would have thought, Boris, but no, I don't really remember, mate, no.
Probably wherever the footy was, you would have been.
Now, in 1992, I remember the post-game celebrations. I think we ended up at the Tunnel nightclub from memory, and one of our teammates, Dwayne Fatty Lamb, who's not here, I don't think, he'll be at the cocktail party later. I think he was asleep under a table and had to be rushed to the airport so he didn't miss the trip home. Do you remember the 1994 celebrations? And thankfully, we did all make it safely back home. Do you remember where you ended up that night? Tommy? Tommy?
Well, Boris, we might have ended up back at your place. None of us had the proper clothes to get to the nightclub, so we savaged your cupboard, took all your suits and clothes and went out. I don't know where we went to, but we had a good time.
No, Karl, I don't know. You're talking to the wrong two blokes up there. We're the squares. You know,
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of blokes out there that will tell you blow by blow where they went and kicked on after the grand final. But no, I seriously have no idea. I didn't even go out after the 92 grand final. I remember the next morning looking at everyone getting off the bus at the airport thinking, I'm glad I didn't go out. But yeah, 94, we celebrated pretty hard back in Perth. I think it was safer environment for me to go out in Perth rather than Melbourne.
Yeah, I can understand. What about putting your hands together for these two? Thank you, John. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, boys.